Tucked away in the southeastern corner of Bangladesh, shrouded by the humidity of the monsoon season, lies Kutupalong, the world's largest refugee camp. Home to nearly 1 million souls, it's a sprawling testament to human resilience in the face of unimaginable suffering. Row upon row of makeshift bamboo and tarpaulin shelters stretch as far as the eye can see, a stark reminder of the ongoing humanitarian crisis that brought it into existence. The sheer scale of Kutupalong is difficult to comprehend, even when confronted with its immensity. The air hangs heavy with the scent of wood smoke and desperation, a constant reminder of the precarious existence led by those who reside within its confines. Yet, amidst the hardship and uncertainty, flickers of hope and humanity endure. Children's laughter echoes through the narrow alleyways, a testament to the indomitable spirit that survives even in the darkest of times. This is not just a place of statistics and aid figures. Kutupalong is a living, breathing organism, pulsing with the heartbeats of those who call it, however reluctantly, home. It is a place where stories of unimaginable loss and unimaginable strength intertwine. To truly understand Kutupalong, one must look beyond the numbers and delve into the lives of the people who inhabit this extraordinary place. Their stories, diverse and heartbreaking, paint a vivid picture of the human cost of conflict and displacement. Each individual journey, etched with trauma and resilience, serves as a stark reminder of our shared humanity and our collective responsibility to alleviate suffering wherever it may be found. The story of Kutupalong is inextricably linked to the plight of the Rohingya people, a Muslim minority group who have faced decades of persecution in their native Myanmar. Denied citizenship and subjected to systematic discrimination, their existence has been one of marginalization and fear. The catalyst for the mass exodus that led to Kutupalong's creation came in August 2017. A brutal military crackdown characterized by widespread violence and human rights abuses forced hundreds of thousands of Rohingya to flee their homes in Rakhine State, carrying little more than the clothes on their backs and the haunting memories of what they left behind. They embarked on perilous journeys in search of safety and refuge. Bangladesh, with its shared border and history, became the destination for many. The influx of refugees was unprecedented, overwhelming existing camps and stretching resources to their limits. Kutupalong, originally a much smaller settlement, became the epicenter of this humanitarian emergency, its population swelling exponentially in a matter of weeks. The world watched in horror as images of desperate families fleeing for their lives dominated news headlines. The international community condemned the violence and called for an end to the persecution. However, the response was slow and inadequate in the face of such a massive humanitarian crisis. As the influx continued, Kutupalong transformed from a temporary refuge into a sprawling testament to displacement and the urgent need for a long-term solution. It became a symbol of both the immense suffering endured by the Rohingya people and the complexities of addressing forced migration on a global scale. The story of Kutupalong is not just about numbers or geographical boundaries, it is about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. It is about the enduring hope for a brighter future, a future where every individual can live in peace and dignity. The Rohingya, stripped of homes and livelihoods, arrived in Bangladesh traumatized and vulnerable. Life in Kutupalong is a struggle for survival. Basic necessities are scarce, and families live in makeshift shelters. Yet amidst hardships, they show remarkable resilience and community spirit. Their stories remind us of the human cost of persecution and displacement. The story of Kutupalong doesn't begin in 2017. To understand its genesis, we must delve into the history of the Rohingya people in Myanmar. Their presence in Rakhine State dates back centuries, with deep roots in the region's history and culture, yet their narrative has been one of persistent marginalization and disenfranchisement. Denied citizenship under the 1982 citizenship law, they were rendered stateless. This legal limbo stripped them of basic rights, curtailing their freedom of movement, access to education and healthcare. Their plight largely remained hidden from the international spotlight. The seeds of the crisis were sown long before the violence of 2017. Years of discriminatory policies allowed injustices to fester and grow. The world remained silent as the situation in Rakhine deteriorated. This neglect paved the way for the exodus that transformed Kutupalong into a symbol of displacement and despair. The situation in Rakhine State was a powder keg of ethnic and religious tensions, ripe for exploitation. The Rohingya, a predominantly Muslim minority in a Buddhist-majority country, found themselves increasingly isolated and targeted based on their faith. This religious dimension added a volatile layer to the existing ethnic divide, fueling mistrust and animosity. The Myanmar government, often influenced by ultra-nationalist Buddhist groups, propagated a narrative that painted the Rohingya as illegal immigrants from Bangladesh, infiltrating Rakhine with the intent to undermine the country's Buddhist identity. This rhetoric, disseminated through state-controlled media and inflammatory speeches, served to dehumanize the Rohingya, portraying them as a threat to national security and Buddhist purity. Restrictions on their movement and economic opportunities intensified, further marginalizing the Rohingya and pushing them to the brink of despair. Their villages, often impoverished and lacking basic infrastructure, became virtual open prisons, subject to arbitrary raids, extortion, and violence at the hands of security forces. The international community, while expressing concern over the plight of the Rohingya, failed to take concrete action to address the root causes of the crisis. Economic sanctions and diplomatic pressure proved ineffective in swaying the Myanmar government, which remained defiant in its stance towards the Rohingya, denying any wrongdoing and dismissing international criticism as interference in its internal affairs. The world's inaction, its failure to hold the perpetrators of such blatant discrimination accountable, emboldened the Myanmar authorities. It also sent a dangerous message that the rights of the Rohingya were expendable, their suffering a mere footnote in the grand scheme of global politics. This inaction would have devastating consequences, paving the way for the violence that would soon engulf Rakhine State. The fragile peace in Rakhine State shattered on August 25, 2017. The catalyst was a series of attacks by the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army on Myanmar security posts. The government's response was swift and brutal, unleashing a wave of violence. The Tatmadaw launched a brutal crackdown, ostensibly aimed at rooting out ARSA militants. However, the scale and ferocity of the operation far exceeded any legitimate counter-terrorism effort. It quickly became clear that this was a systematic and widespread assault on the entire Rohingya population. Villages were razed, homes set ablaze, and people mercilessly slaughtered. Survivors' testimonies paint a chilling picture of indiscriminate killings and unimaginable cruelty. The Tatmadaw unleashed a reign of terror, driving the Rohingya from their homes. The world watched in horror as images of the exodus emerged. The United Nations denounced the violence as ethnic cleansing, yet despite the global outcry, the violence continued. The 2017 crackdown was the culmination of decades of persecution. It was a calculated act of violence to expel the Rohingya from their homeland. Hundreds of thousands fled to Bangladesh, seeking refuge from the horrors. Kutupalong became the epicenter of a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. Dawn breaks over Kutupalong, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. A new day begins in this sprawling testament to displacement. The air, heavy with the scent of wood smoke and damp earth, carries the murmur of a million hopes. For many, the day begins before the sun, queuing for water at communal wells or gathering firewood for the morning meal. The camp slowly stirs to life. Children dart through the crowds, their laughter a fleeting echo of normalcy. As the sun begins its descent, a sense of relief washes over Kutupalong. Families gather inside their shelters, sharing stories and prayers, finding solace in their shared faith. Amidst the hardship, the human spirit endures. Hope flickers in the eyes of the children. Amidst the sprawling expanse of Kutupalong, it's the individual stories, the faces of resilience that truly capture the essence of this extraordinary place. Meet Fatima, a young mother of 3, her eyes reflecting a wisdom beyond her years. Fatima fled her village in Myanmar with her children in tow, her husband lost to the violence. She navigates camp life with quiet determination, caring for her children and queuing for aid. Then there's Amin, an elderly man with a gentle smile and eyes that hold a lifetime of stories. Amin, once a respected teacher, lost everything in the exodus, yet his spirit remains unbroken. He now volunteers at a makeshift school, sharing his knowledge with Rohingya children. And who could forget young Yasmin, her infectious laughter echoing through the camp? Yasmin, just 8 years old, has witnessed more hardship than most will see in a lifetime. Yet her spirit remains unbroken. She finds joy in the simplest of things: a game of tag, a shared sweet, attending school. Yasmin's resilience is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. These are but a few of the countless faces that make up the tapestry of Kutupalong. Ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, their lives forever altered. Their stories paint a vivid picture of resilience in the face of adversity. They are a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope, like a flickering candle, refuses to be extinguished. While resilience defines Kutupalong, trauma casts a long shadow over its inhabitants. Memories of violence and loss resurface in nightmares and unease. Children bear the brunt, struggling with nightmares and emotional scars. Many adults suffer from PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Addressing trauma is crucial for healing and hope. Life in Kutupalong is a constant battle against the elements, a daily reminder of the fragility of human existence. The camp becomes a sea of mud and debris with the arrival of the rains. Makeshift shelters offer scant protection from the torrential downpours. Families huddle together inside their cramped and damp dwellings. The threat of landslides looms large as rain-soaked hillsides threaten to give way. Disease, facilitated by unsanitary conditions, becomes a constant menace. Outbreaks of cholera, diarrhea, and dengue fever are regular occurrences. Access to healthcare is limited. With overstretched medical facilities, the lack of clean water exacerbates the situation, turning minor ailments into emergencies. Children are particularly susceptible to these health risks. The monsoon season is a stark reminder of the precariousness of life for the refugees. It's a time of heightened anxiety and fear, a constant battle against the elements. Yet even amidst these hardships, the human spirit finds a way to endure. Neighbors help neighbors, sharing what little they have. Community leaders mobilize, working tirelessly to provide aid and support. And through it all, a glimmer of hope persists, a belief that the human spirit will find a way to weather the storm. The aroma of spices, a sensory memory of a life left behind, hangs heavy in the air, a cruel reminder of the gnawing hunger that pervades Kutupalong. For the nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees who call this sprawling camp home, food is a constant source of anxiety, a precious commodity rationed out in meager portions that barely satisfy the pangs of hunger. The World Food Programme, the main provider of food aid in the camp, faces an uphill battle against logistical challenges and funding shortfalls. The sheer scale of the operation, feeding close to 1 million people every day, is staggering. Distributing food fairly and efficiently in such a densely populated and chaotic environment is a Herculean task. For many refugees, the monthly rations of rice, lentils, and oil are all that stand between them and starvation. Fresh fruits, vegetables, and meat are rare luxuries, their absence from the diet contributing to widespread malnutrition, particularly amongst children. Stunting, a condition caused by chronic malnutrition, is a common sight in the camp, a visible reminder of the long-term consequences of inadequate nutrition. The lack of economic opportunities within the camp exacerbates the situation. With limited freedom of movement and few employment prospects, many refugees are forced to rely solely on aid for their survival. This dependence, while necessary for their immediate survival, breeds a sense of helplessness and despair, eroding their dignity and their hope for a better future. The fight against hunger in Kutupalong is a race against time, a constant struggle to provide enough for everyone. It's a battle waged on multiple fronts, from securing funding and ensuring efficient distribution to addressing the root causes of food insecurity and empowering refugees to become self-reliant. It's a battle that demands our attention, our compassion, and our unwavering commitment to ensuring that every human being has access to the most basic of human rights, the right to food. The sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling expanse of Kutupalong. As darkness envelops the labyrinthine alleyways, a sense of vulnerability sets in. The camp grapples with theft, violence, and exploitation, particularly affecting women and girls. The lack of adequate lighting creates an environment ripe for opportunistic crime. Traffickers lurk in the shadows, preying on the vulnerable. The Rohingya grapple with new threats within the camp. Trauma, uncertainty, and lack of control fuel tensions. Bangladeshi authorities face an uphill battle to maintain order. Community policing offers hope, but more is needed. A multi-pronged approach is essential for true safety. It's about creating a space where everyone can live with dignity, free from fear. The plight of the Rohingya refugees sparked global outrage and compassion. News reports painted a stark picture of human suffering. The international community responded with humanitarian aid. Governments and individuals donated millions to relief efforts. The United Nations launched a massive humanitarian appeal. Aid agencies mobilized rapidly, setting up makeshift hospitals and shelters. The response faced significant challenges. The sheer number of refugees overwhelmed resources. Coordinating aid efforts proved to be a logistical nightmare. The monsoon season further complicated relief efforts. Despite challenges, international generosity provided a lifeline. It offered hope in their darkest hour. But would this support be enough for the long-term needs of the Rohingya people? As months turned into years, the initial wave of international support for the Rohingya refugees began to wane. The crisis, once a fixture in global headlines, gradually faded from public consciousness, replaced by other pressing issues vying for the world's attention. Funding for humanitarian aid, while still substantial, fell short of the growing needs of the Rohingya population, leaving many essential programs underfunded and at risk of closure. The World Food Programme, struggling to meet its funding targets, was forced to cut back on food rations, raising concerns about widespread malnutrition and hunger within the camp. Healthcare facilities, already operating beyond their capacity, struggled to cope with the increasing demand for their services, leading to longer wait times and inadequate care. Education programs, seen as vital for providing children with a sense of normalcy and hope for the future, faced an uncertain future due to funding shortages. The reasons for this decline in support are complex and multifaceted. Donor fatigue, a phenomenon that often accompanies protracted crises, played a role, as did the perception that the Rohingya crisis was intractable, with no easy solutions in sight. The global economic downturn, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, further strained donor budgets, leading to a prioritization of domestic needs over international aid commitments. The consequences of this decline in support are felt most acutely by the Rohingya refugees themselves. Already living in precarious conditions, they now face the added burden of reduced aid, dwindling resources, and a growing sense of uncertainty about their future. The hope that had sustained them through their darkest hours, the belief that the world would not abandon them in their time of need, began to dwindle, replaced by a sense of resignation and despair. Navigating the labyrinth of aid. For the Rohingya refugees in Kutupalong, navigating humanitarian aid is a challenge. The camp is awash in a sea of acronyms, NGOs, UN agencies, and local organizations. Information is disseminated through community meetings, word of mouth, flyers, and megaphones. Language barriers and cultural differences complicate matters. The most vulnerable find navigating aid insurmountable. They often lack the knowledge, language skills, or social networks. This complexity creates unequal access to aid. Those with resources or connections benefit more, leaving others behind. Addressing this requires making the aid system more accessible and accountable. Engaging with the Rohingya community as partners is essential. It's about creating a system where everyone has an equal opportunity to live with dignity and hope. A waiting world. Kutupalong stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of indifference and inaction. The Rohingya, their lives fragmented by displacement, find themselves suspended in a state of perpetual limbo, their future uncertain, their dreams deferred. The world, once captivated by their plight, now seems content to relegate their suffering to the back pages of international concern. The weight of their displacement, the longing for a place to call home, weighs heavily on the Rohingya community. Grandparents share tales of a life left behind, their words a bittersweet symphony of nostalgia and loss, instilling in their grandchildren a sense of identity rooted in a land they've never known. Children, born into the confines of the camp, gaze beyond the barbed wire fences, their eyes filled with a yearning for a world beyond their experience, a world where freedom of movement isn't a privilege but a right. The international community, its attention span notoriously fickle, seems to have moved on, distracted by other, more pressing crises. Funding for humanitarian aid, once a steady stream, has dwindled to a trickle, leaving many essential programs struggling to stay afloat. The Rohingya, their lives on hold, their futures uncertain, wait, their patience wearing thin, their resilience tested with each passing day. The world, once eager to offer condolences and pledges of support, now appears hesitant to commit to a lasting solution. Repatriation to Myanmar, while touted as the preferred option, remains a distant prospect, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. The Rohingya, wary of returning to a land where their safety and basic rights are not guaranteed, remain understandably hesitant, their trust in their former tormentors shattered beyond repair. Seeds of hope. Thorns of reality. Despite challenges, seeds of hope find fertile ground within the hearts of the Rohingya people. The indomitable human spirit finds expression in the laughter of children, in the determination of mothers, and in the unwavering faith that sustains a community in exile. Makeshift schools resonate with the voices of children eager to learn, their thirst for knowledge a testament to the power of education. Small businesses spring up along the dusty pathways, offering glimpses of normalcy amidst the extraordinary. Community gardens provide sustenance and a sense of purpose, reminding the Rohingya of their connection to the land. Yet these seeds of hope are often choked by the thorns of reality. The lack of access to education, employment, and freedom of movement creates frustration and despair. The psychological scars of displacement linger, casting a long shadow over the present. The international community acknowledges the need for a solution, but seems paralyzed by the complexity of the crisis. Repatriation to Myanmar remains a distant prospect, contingent upon the Myanmar government's willingness to address the conflict. Resettlement to third countries offers a lifeline to a select few, but remains a distant dream for the vast majority. The Rohingya continue to hope for a future where they can put down roots. Seeds of hope, thorns of reality. The unfinished chapter. The story of Kutupalong is an unfinished chapter in a complex and tragic saga. It's a story of displacement, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. It's a story that challenges us to confront our own biases, to examine our role in a global system that often fails to protect the most vulnerable, to ask ourselves what we are willing to do to right the wrongs of the past and build a more just and compassionate world. The Rohingya people, their lives fragmented by displacement, their futures uncertain, deserve more than our sympathy, more than our charity. They deserve justice. They deserve a place to call home, a place where they can live in peace with dignity and hope. The world, its gaze often averted from uncomfortable truths, cannot afford to turn its back on the Rohingya. Their plight is a test of our collective humanity, a reminder that indifference is not an option when faced with such blatant injustice. The time for empty promises and half-hearted measures is long gone. The time for action is now. The future of Kutupalong hangs in the balance, a symbol of a global community grappling with the complexities of forced migration and the enduring challenge of displacement. Will it become a testament to our collective failure, a permanent reminder of our indifference? Or will we rise to the challenge, embrace our shared humanity, and write a new chapter, one defined by justice, compassion, and a commitment to ensuring that every human being, regardless of their faith, their ethnicity, or their circumstance, has the opportunity to live a life worthy of dignity and hope? The answer, as with all things, lies within ourselves.